Hi and welcome to today's session. We're doing the product deep dive with our product team from B3i. We had a really great turnout to our last session yesterday, the launch event. This is just a further opportunity to see more about the product. We're going to be doing a live demonstration as well. And as always, we'll have that Q&A section at the end of this session, which I encourage you to drop your questions at the bottom of your screen to the Q&A function. We'll keep an eye on those throughout the session. We've got a lot to get through in this session, but I'd like to introduce to you, first of all, Antonio Di Marzo, our head of products, and Aris Tzakas, our product owner for B3i Reinsurance. And we also have John Tuplin on the line as well. And those guys will be handling the demo later on. With that in mind, I'm going to hand over straight away to Antonio Di Marzo to kick us off.
Thanks, Red. And welcome, everyone. I do see that the numbers of participants are increasing. And I'm really honored today to have the chance to present to you B3i Re, and you will have the opportunity today to see the application. And before going there, what I'd like to say is what you see, what you will be experiencing throughout the webinar is the result of the work of many people, many experts, professionals, underwriters, brokers, accountants that have been contributing to the requirements that you will be seeing, and that are part of the work groups that we have at B3i. The insurance is currently supported by more than 50 insurers, brokers, and reinsurers globally distributed. We have 3 work groups established: the underwriting one, underwriting and placement, the technical accounting one, and the claims management one. Those work groups, allow me to say, are basically shaping the future of the industry. Not from a user interface perspective, of course, and I will be restating this many times, but from a protocol standpoint. So I'm really thankful for each and every single contribution and each and every single human being that has been pushing our boundaries, that has been pushing B3i to do more and to achieve more, despite the challenges of developing whatever we have developed with a technology that is just a couple of years old. So where there is a loads of uncertainty, and where the difference between designing your application and developing your application with real code and establishing a real network, it's enormous. Everything works on a concept, but the challenge is to go live and really establishing a DLT network with a solution operational. It's not that easy. So today we'll be seeing B3i Re. Just a quick recap on what I said yesterday. What is this all about? This is all about a distributed single version of the truth, guaranteeing that everyone is on the same page without the need of having a single version of the data in the pocket of someone. It's a true revolution if you look at the way placement platforms have been developed in the last years, and admin systems are developed as well. And on top of that, what we developed is also the possibility of qualifying treaty towers with parameters. Instead of just defining a limit and an attachment point, we went at high level of depth in qualifying what are the parameters that define how a specific layer works and what are the rules in order to access the capacity that is provided by a layer. And we created around the contract the possibility of executing several actions. We're not talking here about the workflow, because apart from a couple of exceptions, in the industry, there are no workflows. In the industry, there are actions. And there are specific statuses in which a contract goes. And we have created the protocol in order to really embed those actions in the protocol, leaving full freedom to the user to decide what they want to do. And as a last step, that's a natural evolution. BAR, we have developed the technical accounting. Once you have a contract, you have all the technical accounting terms that are generated out of it.
Antonio, sorry to interrupt. We're having a couple of issues hearing you at the moment. Might be for a few of the listeners as well. It might be worth shutting off your video feed just to keep the bandwidth.
Can you hear me better now?
Yes, much better.
Okay. So I hope what I've said, it was clear. And let me close with a specific point of the application. B3i Re that you will see today is a web app that is running on multiple nodes. And the web app that you will see is just a reference implementation.
Antonio, apologies. We're still having issues with your audio at the moment. I wonder, can you reconnect? And I might ask Aris to pick up for you whilst we're doing that. It's just I want to make sure that the audience can hear you. This is important material.
So as Antonio was saying, so we're going to be showing you here and demonstrating B3i Reinsurance or B3i Re, but really the main message here is that this is just one application running on top of this B3i Fluidity platform, which is our infrastructure. And of course, that on itself is running on top of the B3i network, which consists of all the organizations transacting with each other. So it's very important to note that this is not just one application, but it's actually one instance, a lighthouse product built on top of this platform. So if you're moving to the next slide, so we're going to be talking about the features, the key features of B3i Re. You can see here in blue are the features which we introduced with version 1.0. And in orange, you see everything that we enhanced or added on top. Now, you're going to be receiving those slides, and we will also be demonstrating these features, so there's no reason for me to read through all of these. And also, you'll have the chance to contact us later on and schedule one-on-one calls if you want to know more about those. But what's really important is essentially what's coming. And what's coming here, you can see we're talking about the B3i Re 2.0, but we already are working on B3i Re 2.1 and 3.0. And you can see we've got in the planning extensions around the type of insurance contract supported, the supported lines of business, new functionality, for example, around claims management. And really, we're trying to move towards this end-to-end management of insurance contracts, right? That can be transacted on ledger. That's the whole idea, to got it fully covered end-to-end. Now, before we jump into the demo, and you can move to the next slide, I'd like to give you an overview of how this parametric construction of the contracts works. So if you move to the next slide, you can see what we have here is the layer, which is really the main building block. But the layer can be enriched with a number of parameters, and there are quite a few actually. We're going to be focusing here on the key parameters, such as the layer limit, the attachment point, the aggregate deductible, premium brokerage, installments, the reinstatements, and of course the coverages. As I said, there are many more parameters built into the model, and the whole idea, the goal of having these parameters is to implement these terms as structured data, and also represent business rules as code, those smart contracts you're hearing about. And with the help of the risk transfer protocol that Antonio was talking about, is really to allow us to automate downstream processes. So if you move on to the next slide, I want to focus a bit more on the coverages, which we talked about here. So you can see how all of these things are part of a layer. So if we talk more about the coverages, so we got a layer, and within the layer you can construct multiple coverages, and those can represent included coverages or excluded coverages. And for each of those included or excluded coverages, you can have perils, geographical scope, and lines of business. So you really have a hierarchical way of structuring the coverages. But when we looked at the contracts that are used out in the industry, we realized that that's not enough. So if you move on to the next slide, what we've done also is we've added an additional, let's say, level below the layer, which is the section. And this is really to support all those complex structures that are out there in the industry. So in this case, the layer acts as the aggregating entity above the sections. And similar to the layers, you can also define for each and every section, as you can see on the right side, included coverages, excluded coverages, section limits, attachment points, etc. And what you can implement with those sections, for example, are specific terms on top of the layer. For example, you can implement something like sublimits. So if you move on to the next slide, you can see after talking about all this modular way of defining the coverage, that in the end, the layer the treaty consists of multiple layers. You can see here the treaty tower, as we call it. Of course, the layers contain the sections. And the combination of the parametric definition within the layers and the sections, along with the wording, together consist the reinsurance contract. So now we're going to be talking and showing that in the demo. What we're going to be showing is the treaty creation. We're going to be showing how the cedent and broker engage together to prepare the submission. We're going to see how this is sent out to the reinsurers for quoting, negotiating as well, and then later all the way to binding, signing the contract, and of course also showing some part of the technical accounting as well.
Great. Before we start,
so I guess we're going to
can you guys hear me good? Hear me well now?
Yes, much clearer. Thank you, Antonio.
Okay,
yes.
Just one comment. I'm really happy to see that many technical companies and startups and companies that are developing reinsurance solutions have joined. I'm really happy to see that, because today we will be showing to you a user interface that has been built in order to consume all those APIs and all those flows that can be generated in a DLT. And as I said before, what we aim to do here is to bring DLT everywhere, is to bring interconnectivity to every single product that exists out there. Our mission is not to transform the industry through the means of a single application. Our mission is to bring a protocol everywhere. And by connecting an existing solution to the B3i engine, the solution will be capable of interoperating with the entire network of members. So just by integrating with a limited number of APIs, it gives you a reach of hundreds of thousands when the network will grow. So take into consideration that today you see a reference implementation. And the other point is, for the techie guys in the call, there is another session just after this one, a technical deep dive with Alessandro Spadoni and Steve Houston, reciprocally chief architect and head of engineering. If you have any interest to understand of a little bit more on the tech side of what goes on under the hood. And please take into consideration that what you see today has been totally built on Corda, apart from the user interface that is built with Angular. So we haven't used any kind of strange architecture behind. We have stretched Corda at its maximum extension to do everything. Everything is done with this wonderful technology, because we are a DLT initiative, and we are DLT from the DNA to our backbone to our skin. So take this into consideration. Now, Aris, up to you. Let's create the first treaty.
Whilst they just take over
my screen.
Whilst they just take over the screen, just a quick reminder from me that obviously this previous section, please put your questions down in the Q&A section below, and obviously the ones for the live demo as well. And the session that Antonio mentioned that's coming up, you can get the details for that on launch.b3i.tech, and you can sign up there.
Okay, Can you see my screen?
Yes.
You should be seeing the my browser is open, and I can see a list of outward treaties. So as we explained before, I'm going to be showing you how I'm going to be creating a treaty and involving the broker as a cedent. So at the moment, I'm logged in as a cedent. This is a test environment, so you can see all these environments. This demo environment has lots of treaties already created. The way to create a new treaty is as simple as clicking on this button and then giving some information, a name, inception and expiration date, and reference currency. Now we do have a treaty in the interest of time, which we're going to be using for the purposes of this webinar. So I'm going to use this CADXOL webinar. So as you can see, the treaty has a name, inception, expiration date, and a reference currency. I'm going to go ahead and first of all create maybe an additional portfolio. You can see I've got here 2 portfolios. I can add another one, a UK portfolio. There you go. I can even leave these fields empty for now. So what I'm going to be doing next, as you can see, I can upload a file, and this file you can see here, apologies, are going to be shared with all the parties in the treaty. Now, when I say all the parties, I mean all the parties that will be involved as we move along, the broker and later the reinsurers. So I'm going to upload, let's upload some exposure data. Okay. At this point, I'd like to involve a broker because I want the broker to assist me with the submission. So I'm going to select the benevolent broker, and I'm going to ask, please assist with the submission. Now, the minute I do that, the broker now has access to the treaty. That means all the risk details, the portfolios, the files that I uploaded. And before I give control to Antonio, what I've got here in the preliminary area, which is the area where the broker and the cedent work together to prepare the submission, I've got here the expiring conditions from last year. I'm working on a renewal here. So I'm going to open this one. You can see there is already a structure in place. In this particular structure, there are 3 layers. I talked about layers in section before. So this first layer has 2 sections. In this case, section 1 and section 2 of layer 1, they specify some sort of a restriction to the terms of layer 1. So you can see section 1 in particular for Italy and earthquake, I've got a lower limit, and section 2 for France flood, I've got also a different limit, and of course some other conditions here. The second layer is a case where I've got my aggregating layer, and then I've got that provides an overall aggregate limit of 40 million, and I've got my conditions defined in section 1 and section 2. All perils covered for Italy, and section 2, all perils covered for France. And layer 3 is just a layer without any sections. It's a US layer, and I'm going to be sending that now to the broker to ask them to maybe do some changes and modify based on the requirements for this year. So I'll be selecting benevolent broker. Please review and modify as needed. And there you go. You can see that this contract now has been shared with the broker. And at this point, the broker has right access to the contract. So it's up to them to do the changes. So Antonio, up to you.
Good. Let me share my screen. Okay. So I've already logged in into my treaties. I have loads of treaties. I can write in here webinar and just clicking login into the webinar. I can see that you have inputted some information, 3 portfolios, and that you shared some documents with all the participants of the treaties. But there are also a section here where I can share information privately with you, which is, you know, a way for the broker to share information privately with the cedent and asking the cedent if they will to share this publicly with all the participants. But we have, as broker and cedent, we have this environment of interaction and the possibility of doing our job and cooperating and collaborating always on Ledger. And due to the fact that I am the owner of this file, I've uploaded it, of course I can remove it. So maybe Aris, you will be showing if this is there. Just for the sake of showing that this is a live demo. Yes, this is a live demo. Yes, and we have more than 90 people attending, right? Let me check how many people we have. Maybe you can tell me. 85. Thank you, man, for sharing the file. So it means that now I will be seeing in this part my file that has been shared publicly. So it means that every insurer that will participate with this has this possibility. The reason why you see this step, it's because the owner of the information that is publicly made available to the market is always the buyer of the reinsurance. So it's the cedent, and the cedent is the one that decides what information goes out, that has control and ownership and sovereignty on that data. Remember that DLT, one of the principles is really the sovereignty on the data. So I can also see the contract here, opening my chat, see still the messages, and I can see that this is the message you send me when you ask me to review. I can open the contract from the message or double clicking here, just opening from the message. Keep the chat open in case I want to interact with you, so that we can share the work. I'm looking at the data that you have inputted. Okay, I know that the market has changed briefly this year, so maybe I will need to review some of the terms. You have associated just the EU portfolio everywhere, but I think you have created a new one this time. So I will be including also the UK portfolio in those layers. I'm not an underwriter, so you may find some discrepancy with what we wrote in the title, but that's based on the professionalism of the underwriter to guarantee that whatever he's using on the names here is actually really qualifies the reality. And then I can see that the coverages that you have just have 1 year for Italy, France, I'm fine with that. And there is an additional layer at the end, which is only for US. I'm also fine with that. I'm totally fine with that. I can see that the premium here is specified as rate, as we did last year. What I would suggest is to bring this to rate as well. I know that this year the market doesn't like to do these as, and I will be inputting the equivalent rate that we had before, a bit more. So it's, let's say it's 1. So we get there. Yeah, I mean, it seems that the conditions are fine. Now let me check what are the other terms. I would just fix here the deposit and the minimum to be 90%, just to make sure that, you know, we are in line with everything. And I'm just completing the standard information that usually is completed on a treaty, right? On a contract. I'm looking at what are the fundamental terms and then checking on the restatements. This year the market is not good. They will never accept a free restatement. So I will include here, maybe I will try to have 3 restatements instead of 2. I would increase the restatement because we don't know how the market will behave this year. So I will give 3 restatement everywhere. Let me add another one here. And then I will have just 1 restatement for US. I am the broker, so I will tell you that I want to be paid also on the restatement on a rate of 10% on each payment that will be done on the restatement side. These to automate all the calculations. Let me do an overview. 10% is the brokerage I've included, which is okay. That's done. Let me see if on the installment side you have completed anything. That's the renewal contract. So what I will be doing here is just updating the installments to be in line with this year, because I've just got all the installments from previous year. So I will be upgrading those to the current year. That's a new one. As I said before, guys, you know, this is the magic happens on the back end, and we expect, and we are working with other companies that are developing solutions on top. So there will be interesting things coming also from other companies in the future. And our focus, of course, lives on the back end, on the protocol, where we want to enable rather than deliver solution. But when you're working on a first of its kind infrastructure, then it's fundamental to show exactly what can be done. I can see some clauses. I can add also other clauses from the library. Randomly, I can add just, I don't know, whatever I'm doing, I'm just adding some clauses. I'm sure the underwriters will do this properly. Let me include my UMR here. And yeah, it seems that my job is almost complete. We have included all the information, so I'll share it back with you. And I want you to give me a confirmation. Please review. Actually, please approve, as I want to ask for quotes and send a message. So now the contract, what we have done, we have transacted the contract, and the cedent is responsible to approve these terms and conditions. They will be evaluating the contract. And if you can see, while Aris is elaborating the overall process, I cannot change anything on this contract. I will not be able to change nothing. Yep, go ahead.
So as Antonio was explaining, I've now received the updated contract. You can see here. Can you see my screen, by the way?
Yes, yes.
Perfect. So I'm going to open it here. And I'm going to use the audit trail here to just see what are the changes that Antonio made. So I've got this nice overview. I can see a number of reinstatements changed from 2 to 3. I can see the deposit premium. So by layer, by section, I've got different groupings of the fields. And I can see exactly what changed the previous and the
Sorry, man.
after.
Changed loads of things.
Okay. Yes, indeed. So, okay. Very important for me. I want to go here and check something before approving, because I think you've done a good job. But I want to see, I want to add here a clause that I want to make sure it's added. So I'm going to add this exclusion for coronavirus clause. There you go. Okay. And I think at this step, I'm fine with approving that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to approve this for submission, because one of the very important steps in the process, as we learned, that the citizen needs to approve the contract before it goes out for submission or later for FOT. Okay, so approved. Please request for quotes. All right. Perfect. Okay, so back to you, Antonio.
Yes. So now, of course, the contract is mine. And as you can see, it's blue again. So approved, please request for quotes. Okay. Do you have any preference, Aris?
Let's ask for quotes from the random reinsurer and the responsible.
Okay. Okay. So I will be requesting to quote to random and responsible. I will be setting a due date to receive a response, which is by today. So what is happening now? It's the system, the network is creating these 2 new connections with the 2 reinsurers. And I have now 2 contracts that will be traveling through their own journey, because they are 2 separate things. Every reinsurer cannot see the participant, the other reinsurer participating, and every reinsurer cannot see the terms of the other reinsurer, of course. But as a broker, what I can do is not only I can negotiate with the reinsurer, I can decide to withdraw my request in case, you know, the quoting phase is closed. There is no need anymore to provide a quote. I can decide to withdraw the request and close the process. But while I'm negotiating with the reinsurer, the cedant receives every time an update in compliance with the terms of the mandate. And the broker on this side can chat with both sides. So I can chat with the cedant and I can chat with the broker. Not random. And in this case, you know, the negotiation is facilitated. The way the protocol works is that basically there is a channel of communication around the contract. The contract is at the heart of what we do. And the broker is the orchestration of that. And they can manage all the steps on behalf of the cedant, and they can interact with the reinsurers on the other side. The communication is kept private, meaning that the broker, whatever he is exchanging with the reinsurer, is not visible to the cedant, apart from the terms and conditions that the reinsurer will be giving. So whenever they change, whatever change is made to the contract, it will be transparently shared with the cedant. Whatever message is exchanged, that's part of their private negotiation. So they can already, they can free ride on the chat and exchanges of messages. Up to you then.
Okay, let me share my screen. Okay, so let's look at the random reinsurer here. So what you can see in my list of treaties, I can see on the top CAD Excel webinar. That's the treaty we're working with. So that just appeared because I got a request for quote. You can see I can click here on this, on the broker. I've got two messages. Please provide your quote. Quote cheap, okay. Let's see what we can do. So I'm gonna go here to the quoting tab. I've got a blue icon indicating I've got something, a task to perform. Okay, so I'm gonna open this contract and let's see. Okay, I can inspect the structure, those three layers we've been seeing all along. Let me do the following. Obviously the underwriters here, they will be checking this in more scrutiny. So I will be, for now, just collapsing some of the areas so I can have more space to focus on the premium. Okay, let's see. So, okay, premium rate, I'd like to go a bit higher. Let me put something more here. I'll do that. I'll make that slightly higher. Okay, let me make sure I save my progress because I can also do that in case I want to take a break and continue later. Okay, I'm going to add also subjectivity. So let's call this subjectivity 1. And I'm going to say subject to no known or reported losses prior to inception. Right, let's submit my quote. Okay, I'm going to allow notifications because I want to be notified. And now it's in status quoted. Now, Antonio sent the request for quote to also another reinsurer. So I'm going to also switch to this one. So it's the responsible that I'm looking at now. So the responsible also sees the new treaty on the top of his list. Now, in this case, the responsible, he's going to provide a quote a bit differently. So I'm going to open the same quote request. And in this case, I'm going to decline to quote layer 1. So you can see it's declined. I'll also decline layer 2. And I'm only going to give my quote for layer 3. So I can do that. I can go down and I'll also increase it a bit. Okay. And I'm not going to include any subjectivity in this case. We've seen how this is done. Okay. Here is my quote.
Okay. Now, I can show you what I can see as a broker. I can see the two contracts, and I can clearly see what are the differences of the quote side. There is, you know, a lower rate that has been applied on the last layer, but they've basically declined to quote everything in between. In this case, I got, you know, a slight increase. Now, this process could never end, okay? The broker at this phase can, as I explained before, they can chat with the seed and then discuss the terms and conditions. Of course, if you select one reinsurer, you will see just the quotes that are in relation to that reinsurer, and you can chat. And this process is a process that, you know, it's totally free. Now, once the quoting step is done, we have to enter into a new phase, which is preparing the firm order terms. And in most of the cases, the firm order terms are the aggregation of multiple quotes. So in this case, what I would do is, you know, starting from one of the clauses of the quotes that I receive, I create a duplicate now, and that says, okay, renewal, super big cat, FOT. So what I'm doing is I'm creating the initial terms of the firm order terms. And as being, you know, I'm the broker, I can change everything inside if I want. If I, you know, I want to adjust the terms and conditions and to adapt all the different terms that have been received from different contracts. That's how it works. You can change everything in order to create new FOTs. But as a broker, of course, I cannot submit this to the market autonomously. I need to ask an approval to the cedent. So, and I'll need to ask an approval by today. These are the FOT has agreed. Now, the process to create the FOT is not linear. I can choose of recycle this several times. If the cedent is willing to have different inputs, they can do it. So they can renegotiate with me. So they can tell the broker, please add this, please add that, remove this, remove that. That's totally possible. And of course, being this in a DLT infrastructure, we can all see every single change that has been done in every single transaction. So that's really a powerful tool from that perspective. Now, I'm expecting to receive an approval from Aris without sharing. Aris, we are running out of time. Please approve.
Perfect. I'm gonna do that. Let me quickly approve.
This will, at a certain stage, become blue. As you can see, this was the initial contract we worked on to collect the quote. It was approved for submission. Now this one has been approved for FOT. So now I can open this one. What I can do, I can roll back to preliminary. If I need to change anything to fix any mistake, I can roll back to preliminary, and everything that is changed will require me to ask approval again. At this stage, I will just go out with everything I have here, nothing to be changed. I will just submit the FOT to the market. Please write. And I'll give a due date by tomorrow. I mean, maybe someone will take some time. So what is now happening is that, again, all the network is in between all those parties that I've just mentioned will be receiving the treaty. They will look into their node, they will look into their database, into their vault, they will evaluate the terms. The terms, of course, may be visible through the B3i application, or maybe there is another application that is receiving these terms and will be responding. That's the purpose. And now I will start receiving written lines. So, Aris,
let me quickly share my screen.
Yes.
Just to show how this is done. So we're now looking at the random reinsurer. So now in the binding screen, I've received the FOT, and it's up to me now to enter my written lines. So I'm going to do just that. So I'm going to put here 25.5, and I'm going to put that across. I want to equal. Okay. Now, before I'm going to submit those, I'm going to also add a subjectivity. This time it will be subjectivity 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to say subject to survey report provided within 3 months. Okay, and I'm going to write my lines now.
Okay, Aris, I'll take over while you write your lines. I have also
Exactly.
John is writing the different lines, is supporting. So then I can show you in the overview what's happening. So at the moment I've received, as a broker, I can see that I received just a 10.5% from responsible. Be fast, guys. We are running out of time. These are all the capacities that we have for which we have requested. We have requested a participation to the market, and I'm looking to receive responses. There you go. I just got Ruthless that came with 5. John, you could have given me at least 50, but okay. I'm fine with that. And I can see also a graphical overview is representing the different layers, and these will fill up to 100% as you know, we start filling up all the layers, of course. Okay, so, and in the meanwhile, also the seedant is receiving all the lines. Maybe Aris, to accelerate, you can show the seedant, but you, as you can see, you have everything here. So I will come back on the risk details and telling you, please sign as per the written lines offered. Whatever, you know, we can decide together how the signing is going to be executed. Now I'm still waiting for one, but it's okay, Aris, you can take over. I can see that there is
Exactly, I will just take over.
on this. That's the thing. And you can start.
Okay, so I'm getting now here.
Yeah, go ahead. Just sign.
I'm going to go ahead here and confirm exactly. So at the bottom here, you can see
everything, because maybe we don't have time to show TA.
Exactly.
Let's make sure that we can sign everything. There is also the possibility of penciling lines in the specific field. So that you can first.
I will show that now.
Exactly what is the best distribution of the different lines. And then at a later stage,
I'm going to do that now.
Done, confirm.
So I'm going to just save here. And I'm going to close this. And there you go. You can see that this is not signed yet. It's just saved. So it's work in progress. I can have my overview without confirming. And then once I'm happy with everything, then I can go ahead and actually sign. And I can continue with that. Let me quickly sign this one. Okay, let's see. I'm about to sign outside the range.
Yeah, there was one layer that is not signed. That is to 0. You inputted 0 in the third.
Oh, yes, of course. There you go.
So it is possible, of course, to sign a layer outside of the range that has been specified by the range shooter. If you want to assign more capacity or less capacity than the line to stand, these will trigger an additional step, which is the range shooter that will require to approve your request. So you can enter into an additional step of negotiation up until you land on the signed bound contract, where it says that everyone is bound to the specific shares. Yeah. So last point before we finish, you can show, Aris, just a simple thing, the generation of a PDF.
Absolutely.
Just to, as an example of reporting, you can extract the data that is in the database in a PDF format, but this is a simple.
So I'm going to open a contract here, and I can see here at the bottom right, this export to PDF. So if I click on this one, I get a PDF and I can open that. And there you go. All the information entered in the contract are provided as a PDF. I can even jump to a section here if I want, let's say layer 3. There you go. All the coverage terms premium reinstatement details, and of course later on also my clauses.
Cool. John, up to you to move into the TA world. Just give us an overview. I assume that in that side, we have thousands of technical accounting entries that have been generated. Just give us an overview.
Okay, just bear with me 1 second while I share my screen. Okay.
Whilst John's just pulling that up on screen, it's going to be a really interesting section. Just remind you all to submit your questions to the Q&A. We'll have about just under 10 minutes just to run through those. I want to get to those as soon as possible. So John, back to you.
Alrighty, hello everyone. I'm just going to give you a very quick look at our technical accounting screen. So I've logged in here as the cedent, and I used our sidebar to come to the technical accounting screen itself. And yeah, here we are. I mean, what we're basically looking at here is it's a read-only screen with a bunch of search fields and some filtering capabilities. And the data represents accounting events, accounting items. So at the moment we are showing data for premiums and commissions, and wherever a contract is endorsed in such a way that the premium is changed, we'll also show that here. And we are also working to add both adjustment premiums and losses to the tool. So they should be coming in one of our next releases, latest March. So yeah, let's just have a play around with the screen. I've got this period filter over here, so I can choose which kind of time frame I'm interested in. I'll click on any and click apply, and that means I'm now effectively looking at all accounting items for the current viewing party. And yeah, so down here is our data. We've got this top row here represents a premium of 88,000 euros. So that's me as the cedent paying the reinsurer, and we can see various other bits of information related to that. We've got the class of business. We've got the reference for the coverage, which is the layer or the section, and we've also got the contract reference. So for, I could also filter on these points here. So for example, let's just type in cedent ref. Yeah, so now I'm just looking at all of the accounting items that relate to this particular contract. And yeah, we can really see a full financial history of anything that happened to the contract. And just a reminder, a lot of people forget when they first look at this screen, what's really special here is that we are still on the distributed ledger, so we still have that very high level or absolute level of certainty that what I'm seeing is what the other parties to this information are seeing. So me as the creative cedent, I'm seeing the exact piece of information that the responsible reinsurer is seeing. No need for us to reconcile between our systems.
Yeah, and then John, what you can see is that in case of any doubts, they can click on any TA item.
Absolutely.
Apart
yes,
from reordering the columns, yes.
Yeah. So
it's nice. It's nice.
I like playing with
that. You can click, and then you're straight through into the contract in order to see exactly what has happened, who are the messages, if there is
exactly
of endorsements, and there is a total connection between the two. So there is always the possibility of retrieving the information and understanding exactly. This is actually quite a big contract, I think, that we were testing. So you're seeing all the tests that we have been carrying out just to create a huge contract. How many installments that you created for these? Can you show? I think it's... Oh, just 1. Okay, but there was big layers.
Many layers.
Yeah, loads of layers.
Yeah,
that's and that's it. You know, the key element is exactly that. The power of the information you see in the technical accounting, it's nothing different from what you see today. The biggest difference is that this information is exchanged in real time whenever the contract changes on the other side. So there is the mathematical certainty that everyone is on the same page at the time the page changes. So there is no misalignment. which basically means that every single accounting entry is reconciled at the source amongst all the participants. And this information is the information that is then integrated, that can be exported into the admin systems through direct connection with, you know, the MSG FSRI or through Accord with eBot, eCode, and CM. Those are, you know, the vehicle through which the data is exported. But we at B3i, we want your capability to export and interact much more with the data and the API. So our focus will be on enriching all the capabilities for integration, enriching all the capabilities and facilitating the interaction with the DLT protocol from existing systems. Let's go to the questions.
Thanks, Antonio. Yes, so just a quick reminder, I think that was a really important section to include at the end there, so happy to give it a bit more time. It does mean we have a slightly compressed Q&A session. We'll start off with a question that came up during Aris's first bit of the demo, which was, how does the system get updated with new clauses?
Yes, there are two ways. The one that we have implemented in here, it implies that the clauses are owned by the owner of the node. So you have your own clauses that are published on your node, and you can leverage them in order to create your contract. But here you have a protocol behind. So your imagination can, you know, has no limit, because once you have a network of actors, once you have an established network of members, you are able to share contracts, but you can share lots of other things. And these are exciting things that will come in the future. And you have to consider that the DLT is pretty much like, you know, apologies for the techies on the call, but it's pretty much like a network of email servers. You can exchange unstructured information, you can chat, and you can share attachments, it's true, but you can share structured data. But once you have the network there, nothing implies, as we always said, that you need to use the same client in order to respond to an email, in order to create an email. You can use multiple. But then once you have an infrastructure that is connecting everyone, you can use that infrastructure, the B3i Fluidity, as many for many other purposes.
We have a question come through on the chat. This is the one we've obviously covered a couple of times, but I think we're happy to cover it again. What is the blockchain platform used here? I missed the first few minutes of the session.
Thanks. Yeah, we have developed all our stack on R3 Corda. So we have Corda at the bottom.
And then, well, crucially as well, I was thinking Fluidity on the top of that.
Prego.
Ozan, thank you for your message. We had you on the launch event yesterday as well. You mentioned import function of existing contractual data. Can you show this piece? I don't think we've got time to show it, but maybe Antonio, you can talk to it. Yes,
we don't have the time, but yes, it is possible to import the information, which says you can, in this case, as you have seen, the contract was negotiated end to end, but you can decide of creating just a contract on the system that has been already signed in the real world and publish in the same way we have requested a quote. So that's how it works. So you will be inputting the shares, and the reinsurer on the other side will need to approve or reject, because of course this is a world where every transaction is notarized. So you can create the contract, skip through all the steps of the negotiation, complete the information, and broadcast to the network. What's the purpose of this? Well, you will get technical accounting qualified and reconciled automatically for everyone. You're not leveraging the placement part, but you will automate all the processes from a TA standpoint, and you don't need to do all the activities related to bordereaux and reporting. Nothing is required anymore in this world.
Thank you, Antonio. For everybody listening, we will take all your questions that come in, and please do send them into info@b3i.tech. What we generally tend to do is collate all those questions together, put them to Antonio's team, and we get those answers and we'll publish them on the website in due course. All I need to say is thank you so much for joining today. That was a really quick run through of what is a very in-depth piece that we could spend lots and lots more time on, and I'm sure we will do in the future, because there's some pieces in there that I'm sure we'd like to revisit in the future. But thank you again for joining us. If you'll join us on the technical, I'll see you there in approximately 5 minutes.
Thanks, everyone, and please do just engage back with us. We are here to respond to any query and to support you in understanding more on what we do.
Thanks, Antonio. Thank you, everybody, for joining. See you soon.